Hey listener, July is here, which means it's Parks and Rec month. This year our friends at NRPA are celebrating the power of Parks and Recreation. All month long, NRPA and Park and Rec professionals all across the country will be highlighting all the ways Parks and Recreation has power to bring people together, support well-being, and strengthen our communities. Throughout July, NRPA will share stories, resources, and ways to celebrate the incredible work happening in the Parks and Rec communities all across the country. Parks and Rec Month is a wonderful opportunity to highlight the essential role Parks and Recreation plays in building stronger, healthier, more connected communities, and we hope you'll join us in celebrating this year. Learn how you can get involved and access this year's resources like graphics, plug-and-play messaging, and sample media posts. Find all of that and more at nrpa.org/July. That is nrpa.org/July. Don't miss out on a chance to attend NRPA with a scholarship from RecLess. Visit RecLess Pod for more information and follow us on socials to stay up to date. The deadline is July 13th. RecLessPod.com.
Welcome to Season 6 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three professional friends, if you know, from around the country, bringing you a surprise guest each episode. This project has made an impact, educates others, and continues to support a growing community. Thank you for being part of it. This is RecLess.
Let's talk fire areas. Let's talk fireworks. Fireworks are overrated. Is that going to be a hot take for our guests? Are they going to be offended?
I don't think so.
What up?
Yo,
Jay?
What's going on?
it's been a while, huh?
A couple weeks.
Dude,
Forgot how this works.
Tom hopped on with his headphones plugged in, but not on his head. So he was like, I can't hear you. And I was like, he had me like on full tilt. I'm trying to figure out why my volume isn't working. And I just pointed, you still can hear. I was like, is your headphones plugged in? And he started laughing.
He was just seeing if you were ready.
We're wrapping ourselves in glory today.
Yes, we are. And then Jay tried to jump in before we said jump in. I mean,
Sure.
Yeah, I actually have been like running around like my head cut off all day and
Is it
didn't.
the bond stuff, the project stuff?
That's one of the items. Just, I mean, we had to go visit a park that is under construction that one of the installers didn't think they had something right, so he wanted me to come take a look at it, and then just got back, and then today's our deadline to enter council items for our next council meeting, and it's got to be in by noon, so there was just a kind of a scurry to get things all situated.
We've been at so many council meetings lately. Like, feels like I'm there every. I mean, I'm always there for public comment, but it feels like I've had an item for the last 18 months.
See, we do a bond project update every meeting.
Oh wow!
So
Don't say that to my council.
every single month, there is a presentation on all the updates for every project with pictures, with what's been done the last 30 days, what they're going to do the next 30 days. So
Wow.
it is every council meeting.
I guess that keeps you on track.
Yeah.
all right, you guys ready?
I just want to talk to Jay a little longer first. Do you mind?
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do.
Can you lay out for a little bit? I've got some questions about this every meeting.
I'll just take my headphones off.
Let's go.
Welcome to RecLess, everyone. We are now into episode 10 of season 6 of this little journey between myself and my buddies here, Shane and Jay, Tryon,
buddies.
Shane, Mize. You've been elevated because honestly, we haven't been recording over the last few weeks. So I feel that, there's a longing for this conversation. So you guys are now my buddies, but when we go back to doing this more routinely, I'll probably get sick of you and you're going to be back to professional work friends.
That's fair.
That works.
Okay. So yeah, here we are, episode 10, trying to educate you all a little bit more on this profession we call Parks and Recreation. Jay, Shane, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Good to see y'all. It's been a couple weeks.
Yes. Yeah, I'm good. Do we have Katy Perry on with us today?
Our guest moniker is Let's Talk Fireworks with an image of fireworks. What is the song? What's it called?
I'm impressed that you would even know that song was Katy Perry.
So I only know it because Parks and Rec, because every dad and daughter dance we ever hosted. The last song was the Baby You're a Fireworks song, and we shot confetti and confetti cannon. So don't know if I would know it if it wasn't for that, but yeah.
Do you want to sing a chord?
Yeah, I do. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, I am really excited about our guest, as we tend to be. And also, in talking to our guest prior to this, yes, Shane, that's a thing. You talk to your guest before an episode.
What's that like? That's crazy.
You maybe know them a little bit, get to know them. So anyhow,
Introduce them correctly?
Yes. In talking to our guest, I realized that, you both know we've been a little bit on and off for season 6. It hasn't been every week. And so our release is a little delayed. So our guest and I were just talking about a couple, well, you know how I live so close to my office and how that could lead to, if there's an emergency, you're always the first person that they're going to call. And I brought up, yeah, we had a water main break about 2 months ago. And they said, no, that happened today because that came out in the episode that was released today. So because of the fact that we are a little delayed, I want to jump forward in conversation and talk about Parks and Rec Month. This episode is going to release close to that time. And so my question for you both, as we gear up for obviously this real busy time, I talked to Chris Nunes yesterday, and it's funny because Texas, you guys start summer camp now already, which is wild. So you're already in the thick of it, or starting the thick of it. We're getting into it, obviously, just really getting that weather to click. And Jay, I'm sure you're pretty close, if not already there as well. But Parks and Rec Month is recognized as July. Knowing that that is, I guess, been kind of deemed as a month that celebrates the impact of this profession, all that we do, and I think a lot of us try to highlight that for our residents, our community. If someone were to follow you around for a week during Parks and Rec Month and truly saw everything that you do, that Parks and Recreation has to offer, what do you think would surprise them most? I preface that because I did have a conversation with a couple coworkers the other day about how there's definitely a public conception that we just do summer camp or we just run an event. But obviously there's so much more to what we do. And I think if people got a chance to shadow us, they'd be surprised. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a cool question and a great observation that people would probably just, regardless of what municipality, what city, what state, like all have similar responses, I would think, of like, oh, wow, I did not know that that falls under your purview, or I didn't realize that's what your day would consist of. I mean, for me, I would just say that like, I may have a schedule on my calendar for what my day I think is going to look like. And like, it rarely stays that way, and I'll just use today, for example. Like I said, like I was sitting at my desk, it was, 10:30, get a call from a contractor that's installing a playground. And he's like, hey, the shade structure was supposed to be a 20 by 20. They sent me poles for 20 by 25. What do you want to do? So like, I'm driving out there and we figured it out, but it's just like things like that happen all the time. And that's unexpected, which then like kind of makes a change for other parts of your day because you might be late to something, or it might have just rolled into a different time frame that you were working on. So I think the big takeaway I would say would be just that no 2 days are alike, and you never know what is going to come in your day, and you have to be able to react sometimes extremely quick and just roll with the punches.
Agreed. How about you, Shane?
Yeah, I think they would be surprised to see that I'm still employed.
We all are.
Yeah,
very fair. Yes,
for sure.
In a leadership role too, like
in a leadership role. Yeah,
like I understand you should have a job, but like
they trust me with this department would be pretty shocking. Yeah. I think they would be shocked with how busy we are. We've been working with Jamie Sawback from 110% on some of our financial sustainability things, and she was talking about how difficult a Parks and Rec budget is, and I was trying to explain that to someone the other day. It's like taking a public works budget and like maybe a downtown tourism and events budget and like a library budget and mixing it together. And trying from those three budgets to get data points on what's your cost per event, what's your cost per acre, what's your cost per, looking at inefficiencies when you're doing budgeting and things like that, because of the range of stuff that we do, as we've all talked about. Like, we're building this incredible rec center, and so there are some days that I'm in the third or fourth floor of this facility looking at this structure going in, and then we're dealing with an issue that two lifeguards are having, where one of them, someone ordered, DoorDash, and someone else accidentally ate it, and they're feuding over it in some capacity, and so it's the incredible yin to the yang that this job gives you. And then on top of that, the 15 or 20 emails you get from citizens a day, that they're sometimes shocked that you're not just sitting in your office waiting to reply to it, but you're also out at the lake looking at the water level because we're in water restrictions right now, and you're out checking this new park that you're building. And so I think they'd be surprised how busy we are, because I know when I talk to residents, sometimes they seem to be surprised with how busy we are, and just the amount of just how forward facing we are. And I think they'd be shocked at the range of ages we ultimately manage. I mean, we'll have 14, 15-year-old kids, and we just had our senior bingo the other day that had a bunch of active 80-year-olds in it. And I don't think everyone fully grasps everything that we do, not even at a city level, at its full capacity.
Yeah, I agree with you both. The volatility of the job from a day to day, there's no way that anybody who's doing what we do can say that they go into their office and have a set plan for the day and it just goes that way. It never happens. I don't really know if I could ever think of one day in the entire career that I've led here that's happened. And yeah, Shane, the busyness, there's definitely not just from the community. There's other departments that we coexist with, whether they're collecting taxes, whether they're repairing roads. There's just a feel, or maybe this thought in my mind, that they feel that what is Parks and Recreation doing?
Mm-hmm.
They've got the cake job. They've got the easiest job. So I can agree with both of you. And I think, for me, I wanted to go in a different direction as well, of thinking of it from a perspective of if someone were to be with us for a week, and then they thought of it as, well, what would the community be missing if this individual or our departments weren't there and they didn't exist? And on the surface, it's okay, we don't have a fireworks show. On the surface, it's the grass gets a little bit longer. A playground might deteriorate. But what I believe that they would be surprised about is the intentionality that goes into all of the decisions that we're making. And I think that's been amplified and heightened after COVID too. We have to be very diligent in the way that we serve the community and are utilizing and I know not everybody has this because there's park districts out there, but tax dollars or whatever it is, however you get your funding, the intentionality that goes behind that is a lot more than just making a decision to say that we're going to be running a summer camp or we're going to offer a special event and have fireworks. Logistics, there's so many pieces behind those. And ultimately, with that, I believe the surprise would come from the amount of collaboration and the amount of connection that we create for a community.
You bring up a really interesting point. You're almost supposed to be the subject matter expert in. I mean, it wouldn't be uncommon in one day for someone to ask me where a piece of art was installed, how much the city paid for it, how long it's been there. And on that same day, along that same trail, we might have 450 goats. They want to know the whole RFP process that we did for the goat thing. And then they might ask later on that evening about the fireworks show, and they want to know the cost per minute. And in some capacity, you have to know all of that, right? Plus, that same trail could have a pool that could have a bunch of aquatic, could have a whole aquatic system done by Landmark and your Progressive Defender, and what chemical are you using. And it's incredible. I don't know if there's another department that has that wide range of knowledge base that they have to be able to articulate well at any one time. Even if I'm not the expert in aquatics, I have to be able to explain that aquatics, system to a degree to a resident. Same thing with whether we're mowing or what we're doing with this limestone creek that floods a lot or whatever it is. And so there's a diversity at which we have to be some sort of expert in, which is pretty taxing at times.
It is. It is absolutely, and that goes back to sometimes we talk about the imposter syndrome and what do I know? Or Shane, I guess let me use your example. What did you know about goats maintaining grass
Right.
before you obviously engaged in that? So yeah, I agree. And you know the last piece, and Jay, it looks like you've got something to add. The last piece I want to add to that is on that surprise. And this is just a shout out, and I can't speak for everybody. I want to speak to all four of us on this call. I believe I can, though, the pride that goes into that work. That's another piece that I believe the general public, the other departments, whoever it might be, would be very surprised to see looking at it from a lens really under that microscope for a week or whatever it may be. There's a lot of jobs out there. We've discussed this where people go to work and they're not necessarily happy, or because of that, they're not putting in 110%, to quote Jamie Sabak's company, right? But I think you'd be hard pressed to find people in this profession that don't have a real pride and passion for what they do in the product that they're putting out there.
Yeah, I was just going to add, when you mention, that can lead to imposter syndrome. I also think that's what, in some cases, leads to burnout. It's just like it can be exhausting when you're being asked for things that you either have the information, but it's time consuming to gather, or it's just on all these different spectrums. And, you're talking about the aquatic side of it and the fireworks side of it and the events, and you have to know all these different things. And it's just like, it's a lot and it's time consuming to gather that. And then sometimes that just takes you away from what your task was supposed to be at that time of that day, or other things that are being pulled away from, and then leads to working later and missing other things. So it's just that burnout can be caused by all those things.
And I want to say something to that. We were talking internally as a staff a little bit, and I think public service is hard, right? And I think we all agree in some capacity. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. But I try to tell my staff a lot. I think we're built for hard things. I think we get better with hard conversations. We're built for hard things. The burnout, to Jay's point, happens when things become complex, I think. And the complexity of a hard thing makes, to me at least, that's when I start to feel burnout. Like I can think I could do a hard thing all day long. I think I can do that. It's when there's this complexity to it, and there's this chess match going on with not just this hard thing, but where this hard thing is going to land and where you're trying to steer it, and trying to steer some of these things or make sure we're on the right side of stuff. That's when, at times for me, it's like, God, that's when the burnout really happens for sure.
Yeah, and it takes a special person. The old phrase, if it was easy, everyone would do it, I think applies a lot to the day-to-day of what we do.
I say if it was easy, they'd call it public works.
Oh, man, shots fired. Whew. All right, well, hopefully, let's see, Meredith, maybe she's not listening to this one.
She's the first one I thought of.
Yeah, on that note, let's move on to our guest. All right. So, first of all, both of you, at the very least, know of our guest.
Okay.
Do we?
You do. You do. So, let's get into it. Our guest formerly worked for an agency where their supervisor was an Academy member, a one Tom Schuster. So Tom Schuster was one of the first individuals I met from my externship experience. Just a larger than life personality, Ocean City, Maryland, was wearing a giant pink cowboy hat to the Academy banquet. And you know how those banquets are. This gentleman just lit up the table. It was such a great experience. So worked under a really, really wonderful professional in our field. Some fun facts. Our guest refereed in 6 NCAA basketball tournaments. They're a 2-time All-American NURSA flag football official. Really, really fun fact. They went to the same elementary school as a former guest, Chris Nunes. So it's like one of those.
Was it even elementary school back in that day? Or was it like, was it just a one building and all the kids were there?
Didn't say they were the same age as Chris Nunes.
That building's probably historic now.
In their current role, recently brought back the Independence Day celebration to the community after a 10-year hiatus. They've held 2 positions in the field over a 25-year profession. They received the Friends of the Rappahannock River Steward Award winner. I'm not sure if I said Rappahannock correct, so we're going to have to get some clarification on that.
We've gone to the Shane portion of this intro.
Yeah, hard name. So they are also a graduate of James Madison University and also received their master's at Ohio University. They're just as likely to be working on transportation projects as Parks and Rec projects. So Shane, you probably offended our guest today. Very, very active on LinkedIn and social media. Love the content they put out. Really supportive of this profession and their agency. Next to our youngest listener, Rooney, they may be the self-proclaimed podcast's #1 fan. Any ideas?
Chris? It's not Chris.
Wow,
Clarke?
Look at that. Shane, you got it. Our guest, Director of Parks and Recreation for King George County, Virginia. Please welcome Chris Clarke.
Hey, what's up?
Shane nails it.
What's going on?
I thought Jay had it too. Watching his eyes, I thought he had it.
That last hint was getting me there.
How's it going?
It's going great. How are you guys?
Good.
Man,
Welcome.
happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I could just be hidden and just listen to you guys talk all day. I was dying laughing.
Well, Chris, thank you for joining us. We've really appreciated your support, and you're always a cheerleader of ours, but also a cheerleader of the profession, and of course, what you do in your own agency. And so I want to start and kind of piggyback off of what we talked about Parks and Rec Month. You had shared that your Independence Day celebration took a 10-year hiatus from the agency, and you got there in 2018, correct, as the director. It had already been on the hiatus by the time you had arrived. I can relate. Same situation. We talked about this. Our Parma days is our summer smash, we call it now. Fireworks, all that. It went about 10 years or so where it was non-existent. Budget cut after the recession in, I think, 2007, 2008, around that time. And it had been one of the first goals I set was within a couple years, we need to bring this back. This is such a huge way to bring that community together, to collaborate with the community. And sure enough, we did. I want to say it was 2017 or so. And lo and behold, this year, now we're at a point where not only did we fight to get those funds back to have fireworks or whatever it may be that you include in your event. This year, we're excited to have a drone show that also has pyro drones. So we've got some of the drones that'll be shooting off fireworks in the sky, which is pretty exciting. So it's come a long way. And our community is, I think, forever grateful for that. It's something that they maybe didn't realize they were missing. And there it is. And now it's a place where people get together, thousands of people. And so your situation, your event, it sounds extremely similar. And I'd love it if you could just talk to that process of what that meant to the agency, what your intention was going into your role in bringing back the Independence Day celebration, and just kind of highlighting that as we all are gearing up for these huge events during our Parks and Recreation Month in the month of July and August.
Yeah. So for us, I got here in 2018, the county's 300th anniversary of being divided off by the House of Burgesses in colonial Virginia times to become King George County off of Richmond County was in 1720. So the plan was to have a year-long celebration with 13 or 14 events. When they talked about these events, I kept my mouth shut because they said, oh, we're going to bring in a consultant planner to help us do these events. And I went, well, that's kind of what we do, but I don't know how we're going to pull off 14 events in a year with a limited staff. There's only 5 at the time, 5 of us, 3 programmers, an admin, and me. So I was like, we're not going to try to take a bite at this apple. Well, then obviously we're 3 events in because we started in the fall of 19. COVID happens and everything freezes. So 9 of the events or whatever get canceled. So as we're coming out in the fall, the board's like, well, we already paid $30,000 for a fireworks show. Like, we want to do it. And so we did the event in November. We lucked out. It was like a 50-degree day or 60-degree day. Decent day for, Virginia can be questionable sometimes in early November. Coolest thing, you launch fireworks in November, you can launch them at like 6:15. So the whole event was over by like 7:30. Like, everybody was gone, and I was home by 8:30. So kind of wish our July 4th was in November. Made life a lot easier than getting home at midnight. After that, we very successful event. Folks really at that time needed something to do, and the board's like, we should do this again. Let's bring it back. Well, why we went on a hiatus? We have a big naval support facility, testing facility in Dahlgren, which is part of our county, and we used to do the fireworks on base. And so county would pay for them. The base would take care of everything else, and the folks could be on base. Well, 2013, 2014, I don't know the exact year because I wasn't here yet, change of command at the base, they did away with that. It wasn't a 9/11 thing that killed the people behind the base. It was the idea that it just wasn't going to work anymore. So we said, okay, we're going to bring it back. We have a newer sports complex. It was built in 2015, I think it was when we opened it. So it's 4 soccer fields, 4 baseball fields. It's right on the edge of the county, which stinks from a tourism standpoint. But we started out and tourism paid for the tour. Our tourism hotel occupancy tax still pays for the fireworks. But first couple of years, they paid for the band, they paid for the stage. I paid, Parks and Rec paid pretty much zero for the event other than labor costs. Since then, we've been able to grow it to the point that now occupancy tax only pays for the fireworks. We've got sponsors and have bought our own stage to stop paying $2,300 a rental. And with vendors, it's now a part of our activity fund. So it's a positive draw for us, not a great one, monetarily, but it breaks even at least every year. And we've gone from 3,000 to 3,500 to last year. We thought our estimate's about 4,500 people. I can't convince them to give me $30,000 for placers so I could know exactly how many people are there. But we paint parking spots. We've got one of the painting robots. And so on the elementary school that's adjacent, we paint a parking lot on all the fields possible. And every year the staff comes back and I'm like, 2 years ago they came back with bases in the back of the gator. And I'm like, why do you have bases? Oh, we had to take them off the elementary school baseball field because we parked cars on it. And I was like, what? Never dreamed we were going to put, but we needed more space. It's not the greatest baseball field, so they weren't hurting anything, but they pulled the bases up, which was a good idea. And so last year we painted spaces on that and added more, and people were parked off the road far enough that fire rescue was happy that they could get in the case of an emergency. I don't know where else we're going to add spaces this year, but that'll be something we're going to be planning in the near future. So it's really become a great event. And now we've grown into some other special events. We do a family day, which is a partnership with social services, ourselves, and our VFW post, and trying to manage that and do the different parts with bands and all that. That's the first Saturday in May, which is a lot of fun too.
Chris, Tom talked about the variety of things we do, right, in this industry and how surprised people would be. To take that a step further, I think I'd be surprised if I followed Tom around for a week or you around for a week or even Jay around for a week, because I think even in our departments, it ranges, right? Like we had Brian on recently and he was from a smaller department. Emmy is coming on soon. By the time people hear this, it's not a surprise, and she's helped start that small agency network. And it sounds like you have a very small agency or a smaller agency. You'd qualify for that small agency network as well. And Tom and I have presented a couple times to some people virtually and in person about CIP. And sometimes it's a turnoff for them as soon as they start talking about all the crap we're doing, because it feels like 2 lifetimes for them, when I'm doing these huge bond projects. And I think sometimes when people ask the partnership question, I don't have to partner nearly as much as I think Tom does, because I have a pretty big budget and we have some of those dollars afforded to us, at least currently. It sounds like you were using every leverage point you could, different funding sources, different partners to pull this off. I guess take me through that. Before the small agency network, and I don't know how involved you've been so far in maybe some of the stuff that they're working on, but did you feel like you were doing a different job than some of the peers that you would see on LinkedIn and something else? And how did you reconcile that in some ways? Because you worked really hard to pull your event off, and my staff works really hard to pull our events off, but I don't think I would have had the same experience that you would have had if I was having to start an event or revamp or bring back an event in the same way. Like you were pretty hands-on with a lot of that.
Yeah, I actually am with Independence. It's the one that I still have. It's my baby. The board of supervisors was way behind it, was very much behind the continuing, going from the 300th anniversary to doing the Independence event. And we're happy to approve tourism funds the first year for everything. It was other than, I think, the porta potties was the only thing. We added some more porta potties to the park, obviously, because of the thing. Everything else, went out, used the same band that we used for the event, kind of just started to grow from there. But I knew we weren't going to be able to keep dipping into the tourism pot because it's really not a tourism event, although we do the event the Saturday after the 4th. So this year we're the 11th. We use the same company that the surrounding localities all use. So
get it cheaper. Tom shoots his fireworks off at like the middle of October.
We get more. Mm-hmm. We get more. The technician every year pretty much asks me how much are you paying? This year it's $28,500. We had to go from $25,000 because just the cost of getting fireworks here on ships is so much more expensive. I think we all know that. If you're doing shows, you know that. But he always says, "Oh, you got a $32,000 show. You got a $33,000." Throws out some number, and I'm like, "Sure." The people don't know any different. Right. We finish the shows every year, and somebody on the way out says, "That's the best fireworks show I've ever seen." Because of the park it's in, the cloverleaf of baseball fields, we are literally 1,200 feet away because the biggest shells we shoot are 6. I mean, you feel everything. It's not like, growing up, we'd go and sit on the Virginia side of the Potomac some years and watch the DC fireworks. You can't feel those. They're far away. They're far away from you. But you sit right on top of these things. Like I put earplugs in every year because I'm that close to them and just to listen to them. But it's a great event. But growing into sponsorships, went with these other events that we're doing. I took 3 big sponsors and made them year-long partners. So they do our family day with us. They do our independence celebration, and then they do our part of our Christmas tree lighting. And so it ropes them in, gives them good press, good, we give them a good push on social media, nice banner placements, and, it's helped cover the costs. And we, charging for food trucks, and we're adding more and more little craft vendors into the independence one, which to me, I'm like, I don't get why they want to come, but I don't do that as a side hustle. So I guess that's why I don't understand why you want to pay $50 in the middle of July to go sit in a field for 2 hours. But they come and they show up, and people do shop them. So it's become a very good community event, and folks look forward to it every year.
And listen, for Shane and everybody else listening out there, maybe Chris and I are onto something, okay? Doing the fireworks the week after, and we are 3 weeks, not October, Shane. It's 3 weeks after the 4th of July.
Feels like October.
It's a nice draw, and you're not necessarily just pulling people in from your community, too. The neighbors are saying, "Oh, there's another fireworks show 3 weeks from now," as opposed to trying to hit 5 of them on the same day or the same weekend. And to Chris's point, little bang for your buck, pun intended. So take notes, all right, Shane? You don't have to do
celebrate the Boston Tea Party or something. They do the anniversary of something else.
For the guy who always says he's going the opposite direction of everybody else, you're telling me that I have to run a fireworks show on July 4th, the most popular day of the year.
No, I think it's genius.
Okay, we could stop the show. We're done.
That is a pretty interesting take, considering how much you like to be different and unique and do your own thing, that you want to call him out.
No, I get there's some hypocrisy there.
Hey, we'll be right back.
Here at RecLess, we believe none of us got where we are alone. Every career is shaped by mentors, meaningful conversations, and opportunities to grow. That's why we're excited to offer the 2026 RecLess NRPA Young Professional Scholarship, sponsored in part by our friends at Ben Schaefer Recreation. If you're an emerging parks and recreation professional looking to attend the 2026 NRPA Annual Conference, we'd love to hear your story. Visit our social media or website to apply by July 13th. And speaking of Ben Schaefer Recreation, are you looking to enhance your park or public space? Ben Schaefer Recreation provides much more than playgrounds. They offer inclusive play, dog parks, outdoor fitness and Ninja Warrior style courses, shelters, site furnishings, outdoor musical instruments, shade structures, surfacing, and more. If you're creating a space where people gather, play, exercise, and connect, Ben Schaefer Recreation is ready to help bring your vision to life. Ben Schaefer Recreation, creating places where communities play, connect, and thrive. And now, on to the show.
I just hopped on your website because I like to do this whenever we get a guest on, and I see you also just had a different event, Family Day, a couple weeks ago. Obviously, I don't think there's fireworks there, but this looks like quite the event with what 64 different vendors at. I mean,
Yeah.
is encompassing with this, and how's the what's the big draw for this one from the community? Is the vendors? Is it food? Is it entertainment? Is it everything? And what kind
A
of work
little,
in this event?
yeah, the entertainment's not as diverse. This year we were DJ only.
Okay.
It actually started, my former brother-in-law is our social services director. And so he came to me 5 years ago and said, I need to do an event because I want to tell people about what we do, because most people only think we do child protective services. And I'm like, okay, well, a couple years ago, the AD at the high school, single high school county, he says, I think you should do an all sports day at our thing. Our flag football league, which is an affiliate of ours, plays on the stadium. He said, you use a softball field for some little league games and the practice soccer field for some Parks and Rec soccer games. So we merged those two together the first year. They did all the work. I just kind of got the sports parts to go and had our staff there doing some stuff marketing us. The next day at one of our parks, our VFW post celebrated their first birthday. And so they did a big event. So as they wrapped up for the next year, they said, we want to use Sealston Sports Complex, which is the big park that fits everything. And we want to be the first Saturday in May. And I said, well, unfortunately, Jonathan and I want to be the first Saturday in May for our event. How about we go together? Because we're kind of repeating things. And we needed to get away from the high school because we actually filled everything at the high school. All the parking was gone because it was a beautiful day. The people at football were not happy because they had to park further away. Like the captured audience that we felt like we needed, we probably didn't need. So now we've done 4 years at the sports complex. Because it's the sports complex, VFW can do alcohol. So we've got the wineries and beer event and a local brewery there. The VFW covers, they do 75% of the vendors. Social services does 25%. I bring our stage. I bring our canopy tent. I arrange for the porta potties. My staff does some of the kids area, but everybody else runs parks. And so I don't do a whole lot with that one other than smile and wave and shake some hands.
Yeah.
And it's a great partnership. We feel like it grows every year. This year I had our traffic counter out there and we had 120 more cars than we did the year before. So it's not as big. We're trying to equate it to being our spring festival. We have a fall festival in the county that's huge. They hold that at the high school, and it's got a parade. It's been around for 66 or 67 years now, but it's run by an organization of organizations, and we're just a part of that group. So we're trying to fill that need in the spring, and it really has turned into a nice event after 5 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Any event origin story that starts with my former brother-in-law is going to be an interesting partnership.
Well, at the time, he was my brother-in-law.
Yeah, I know and it sounds like you are still on good terms, which is great.
Yeah, he and I get along great. Yeah.
Well, I want to go, and I think this is really great to talk events and all that we do to impact the community. I really appreciate, from my perspective, the amount of effort and intentionality that goes into your partnerships. I think we can go on a tangent to there, but I do want to go back because I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this question, because I believe it's really good advice for individuals in this field who are looking to advance into a director role or into maybe just another leadership role, a step above, whatever that may be, where they're supervising individuals as opposed to their main task being the planning and overseeing supervision, or I guess carrying out an event or a program. And so, real short story, because I'm not going to answer for you, but I came into this role. The department was very small. I've probably told this before, and we've grown. But in order to grow, we had to ramp up our service spectrum. And so we did so. A lot of that came from what I saw in my past agencies, in seeing, all right, this was a need in this community. I feel like it's a hole in the current community that I just came to. So with a smaller staff, less resources at the time that I came in, the only way that I saw fit to do so was to do it all myself. I mean, I'm talking out there as the director, running a Pee Wee program, getting our recess camps that didn't exist started. Being on site, all of the events were decimated. Since then, it's been great. We've seen the growth because of that, and now we have a team that carries that out. And the one that I recently, I would say as of 4 years ago, was relinquishing to one of the team members. It was events. Events was the one that I held on to in my after, I've been here for 12 years, but I held on to that the longest. It's a big undertaking. You've just talked about events, all that goes into it. You have a vision, though. You've done this for so many years. I remember a post that you put on LinkedIn that I engaged with because I really related to it. And it was speaking to the fact of at some point in time, you have to have the people in place that you trust to carry out these initiatives that you once held so dearly. And a few moments ago, you said the Independence celebration, that's my baby still. But all of those other events used to be your baby. And now they're not. So what is your advice? Because your post, I pulled a lot from that, on what you might tell an individual who's looking to grow not only themselves, but their department on being able to, I guess, let go, for a lack of a better term.
So, yeah, a lot of that came from changing the department. So when I got here, there were 5 full-timers in the department. As I said before, three do programming, an admin, and me. I was the youngest member of the staff, and now the boss, which I think all of you have probably experienced. Over the last 7 years, we immediately had the recreation supervisor retired during COVID. She was like, I'm done, not dealing with this nonsense, and good for her. So we made an internal promotion, brought in a athletics guy that we were prepping him for the athletic supervisor's position, who was going to retire. In there, 2023, I finally got our parks guys from our general properties division. Now I've got there's 9 of us full time. Still not enough. We need way more parks guys, but trying to get that through to the electeds is a challenge. When my admin decided to retire, I said, I need to, first was, let's just hire and replace her. And I thought, no, for us to grow, we need to program more. Do I really need somebody answering the phones, or can we adjust this position? So I turned that position into a recreation coordinator. The building supervisor, since the athletic supervisor is retired, is now an athletics coordinator. The building's fallen back under the recreation side. And we've got part-timers that fill the front desk all day. So there's one that does 6 hours open to about 2:00, and the other one does 2 to close. And so the desk is covered. They're awesome part-timers. They do a great job. In adding the recreation coordinator, I knew now the first one I can hand off is our Christmas tree lighting. And so last year, I had all the sponsorships lined up because they were year-rounders. And so we're funded. We had a couple meetings and we went back and forth. And I'm nervous because when I got here, the Christmas tree lighting was it was a county event because Parks and Rec brought the PA system. Nobody came. We had some fire pits that a former board member's putting out, and we lit the tree. And I'm going, and the high school brass ensemble played when we lit the tree. We need people to show up. So the first thing I said, I got to get schools involved. Father of 4, we're adding more school bands. So we'd had one school choir that had sang for the last 4 years. And Shayna comes to me, she says, why is it Sealston Elementary? What about King George and Potomac Elementary? And I said, they've never asked me. I don't have time to go seek them. She goes, well, can I? And I said, absolutely. She goes out this year, has all 3 elementary schools sing, has the high school choir sing. The brass ensemble still plays. There's a multi-church youth group band. They play. And I mean, we had entertainment the entire hour and 30 minutes until we lit the tree. The only jobs I had to do were the beginning to get the money in January and introduce the chairman of the board of supervisors at the event. She ran everything else, and it was flawless. I mean, just growing on what we'd added, the things we'd added. And that was where the post came out that I was nervous, and to be able to see, rookie programmer, she'd been on the job for 9 months and just took the ball in her hand with it. And it was nice to say, you go to a board meeting the next week and they're like, oh, you did such a great job. I'm like, I had nothing to do with it. They're like, what? I spoke. Actually, I made the new light switch that we threw because I didn't like the one we had before. Yeah, Shayna took it and ran with it. And it was just cool to know that, you've got staff now that you can start doing this.
Yeah.
Problem with 4th of July and why I got to keep it is, as we all know, the recreation staff's running day camp for the next 8 weeks. I mean, we start, our kids get out before Memorial Day. So here we are the week after Memorial Day. We're in our first week of camp.
Yeah.
And athletics, same thing. They're doing sports camps every day. So there's not anybody else to run it. Our next growth, I think, is to try to get a special events person, even if it's a cross between us and our tourism department.
Yeah, Chris, that's great. That your response ties so well into our conversation that we had before we had you hop on. You talk about, and this is just before the guys hop in, this is just comment. You talk about burnout. You're doing everything. And that's, again, going back to what maybe the general community member or even the elected officials may understand or be surprised of what you're doing. So now picture this. A director of Parks and Recreation is working on the budget. They're working on operating their facilities. Obviously, the staff management piece that comes along with that. But on top of that, they're coordinating all the events. That's a big ask. That's a huge ask. And we turned an individual into an events coordinator, basically. And what I learned from that, just to add to what you had said, is there was trepidation. I was, oh my gosh, is this going to go well? A lot goes into these events. And what I ended up finding out, though, with the passion and the eagerness that those individuals put towards that, they could actually make it so much better than what I could do. Because I was trying to devote my time and divide it between, like I said, that budget, our parks facilities, our whatever it may be, the staff, and then, oh yeah, I'm going to work and try to coordinate this large event. So there's bits and pieces that we weren't able to level up or to make it just a little bit different or better every year because of what you all talked about earlier today, and that's that time and what everybody else is doing in the grind and running around during this time of year. And I guess throughout the entire year.
Yeah, our tourism assistant would ask me stuff about Christmas tree lighting right after the fireworks event. I'm like, I don't know. We got to do a budget and do a fall festival before then. I'll start thinking about that in the middle of October.
Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, when I worked in Hutto, we were about 30,000, and I think there's unique parts of being in a bigger city. I've worked in Fort Worth. Jay's been in Mecklenburg County. Those are pretty big agencies, and Jay's been in Indian Trail, and then now Concord. So I think in some ways, I think at least both of us have worked in some pretty large agencies, some smaller agencies, and some mid-sized. So Jay, I don't know if this connects with you in some ways, but like, I think the thing I'm jealous about of a smaller agency is that I could walk outside and there would be programming going on, or I could be engaged. Like they could just knock on the door or come get me and say, hey, we got this idea, this really cool spark or this really cool moment or conversation would happen. And I don't have that now. We're in 5 different buildings. I've got rec staff somewhere. I've got event staff somewhere. I've got park staff somewhere. And so even when I'm going and visiting, then trying to have the intentionality of this, great idea, this spark, you're always hearing about afterwards. Like, hey, Bob had this great idea and we had this conversation. What do you think? And it's like, I enjoy hearing that great idea happened. I always think, damn, I wish I was actually there when it happened. I would have loved to have had the time and been in the moment to participate. In a smaller agency, I think that makes leadership and mentorship, I don't know if it's better or worse. I think it's different. You also can't get away from your staff. You want to, they're a door shut away in some ways. Like you can't just walk in and not say hi to them. Like I can walk into my facility and there's only 3 or 4 staff at this admin level here. And so, I think there's good and bad to it, but, does it make handing some of that stuff off a little easier knowing you're one door frame away from being right in the middle of that conversation?
Yeah. I mean, it is that, it is easy to support and be there, but it's also a challenge. One of the people that my job in no way is close to hers is Jay Cole. I grew up in Fairfax County, and when she says, in her first year she's going to go visit all 460 whatever park locations that they have, and I laugh and go, I have 440 acres.
Yeah,
it's just a totally different world. But when you talk to her, and I think she talked about it on the podcast, how she separates what she does, and that she knows she's not going to dive into the weeds sometimes because it's not her role. There's 3 things I actually went through. I interviewed for a job with them for a division director And I was like, they describe it and how many volunteers and part-time employees it has. And I go, I can't do that because I do want to be more hands-on with my folks.
Right.
I want to know something about them. Our facility is a banquet hall, so we don't do a lot of programming in it. We use the school. So right now, day camp is at the elementary school. It's in the center of the county. I'll probably get by there 3 times this summer if I'm lucky. And it's 3 miles away, but it's just, finding that time to get by. They do come to our center once a week. They do a cooking class, little program in it. And so when they're here, usually I mess with them. Yesterday, I did not because I tend to cause chaos,
right?
Which gets me in
It's
trouble.
week 1. You're giving them trouble. You're letting them get by on week 1, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But it was when I was in Ocean City, I was running our day camp and changed how I did that, and was a big change. I said, I'm going to stay at the school all day because the school was 10 miles in resort traffic from the rec center. And so I'm like, no, I sit at the teacher's desk and I have the laptop and I don't do anything with camp until they make it seem like they need me. If it's a discipline problem, it's the camp director dealing with it, and then I'll jump in. Other than when I'm like, yeah, I'm bored and I'm going to run outside with a cape on because I was the supervisor and would run through the playground and drive the kids nuts. And our little preschool camp, if I would run through there, they would then yell at me and say, Chris, you're not allowed to come to camp come into our room at this point because you wind the kids up and you leave. So
it's fun.
It is good to be involved. Yeah. And that's one of the hesitancies for me to say, do I move bigger? Whether it's up in county administration or do I go to a bigger department? Because you do pull yourself away from that. Right now, it's a good balance.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because, and I've had that conversation with a wide number of people on, what size agency is best for them. And there's no right or wrong answer. I will tell you right now, I have, and Shane kind of mentioned it a little bit. I've worked for 3 agencies, everywhere from 30,000 to over 1 million people. And all of them have major, pros and cons. And whether it's publicly, public facing pros and cons, or staff wide, program wise, event wise, there's so many differences. There's a lot of similarities, obviously, of what we do, but the way we go about it and what the expectations are and just what the involvement is so different. Like, I don't know about every other large agency, but like Mecklenburg County doesn't necessarily focus on like big events like we just talked about. Like there isn't the fireworks festival. There used to be one, and I used to be involved in it, but it doesn't exist anymore, ran by the county. There's so many other side organizations that are doing fireworks shows or that are doing, fall festivals or outdoor festivals that they don't need to do it, but maybe individual rec centers do it. So it's through the department still, but it's not the whole department versus, a smaller department like Indian Trail. Yeah, we did a fall fest. We did a spring fest, and it was all hands on deck versus when you got a department that has 400 employees, you might just do one for the region and it's only 30 employees because it doesn't impact the folks that live 45 minutes away that are on the other side of the county.
Basically, Jay was just saying that when he left, the fireworks show died. It died with him. That's how good he is at fireworks.
I was actually still there when it transitioned away from being a county thing. And what happened was this Charlotte built a downtown baseball stadium, and they always have a home game on July 4th. So they took over the fireworks show. They used to be at the facility I managed. It was a special event facility. We'd have 8,000 people there. But as soon as the baseball stadium was built, it's Center City. It's kind of that partnership with Center City. Charlotte took over with the baseball team. And it made a lot of sense because there's a downtown park right next to it. So you don't have to just go to the baseball game to see the fireworks. You can go to the park and see the fireworks, but it's not put on through Park and Rec. It's put on through the baseball team.
City of Fredericksburg, which is just to our east or our west, did that. They've got a minor league stadium now. They got the single A franchise for the Nationals there, and they're the fireworks on the 4th in our area.
Yeah. There's no reason to compete with that when they got it handled. And why should you spend the money if they're already doing it? And if it's not a huge, draw to do more than one, which you don't want to compete with, a baseball stadium that's going to have a built-in crowd anyway. When Tom was doing the introduction, he mentioned officiating. I don't know about where it is, where Tom is living right now, or where you're living, Chris, and what Shane is dealing with. But, I know obviously there's a lot of challenges right now with sports and officiating in general. I know, I want to say 2 years ago, I know of some agencies in Virginia that actually canceled their basketball season because they could not find enough officials. And, it's just tough to find people that want to officiate youth sports just because of the harassment they may take from mostly parents, but also coaches, and in some cases the kids as well. Are you still officiating, or is that something you've stopped for whatever reason it might be?
No. So when I got here, I had figured out I needed to retire from officiating. I'd been doing Division II and Division III college ball, women's college ball for 15 or 16 years.
Okay.
Through the Mid-Atlantic, and been doing high school ball since '98. Started rec ball when I was 13. So I've been doing a lot, and our board meets twice a month. My advisory committee meets once a month on Wednesdays, which is a big night for D2 and D3 teams. So I'm like, well, that doesn't work. My kids were getting older. At the time, my daughter was in eighth. They were in eighth, sixth, fourth, and first when we got here. So it's like, now they're in sports. So if I'm going to be doing a Saturday game, that's not going to work. I'm going to miss the entire day. And so it was just time to give it up. But yeah, I did 6 years worth of the NCAA Division III women's tournament. And I loved it, but just was time to give it up. I also, I've done I did baseball early on. And then I was doing women's lacrosse too before I moved here, which was a lot of fun too. Time goes away and wanting to see those kids. Now they've all moved through. Now I got 2 college students and 2 high schoolers, and the youngest one's football and basketball. The others the daughter played softball all the way through. So we were doing that whole travel circuit with her. And then the middle 2 are track athletes. So
okay.
I actually was on the road more probably in this fall than I had been in 10 years because it was between the college meets, the high school meets, and the middle school football games. It was like something every night.
Yeah. Jay knows that. I bet Jay feels that same way in some ways for sure. But like when you're doing officiating, it's actually a pretty decent way to make a supplemental living, but that's not why y'all are doing it. Y'all are doing it because you just love the sport, correct?
Yeah. And the camaraderie, that's the biggest thing I miss, is the camaraderie and the people I was working with. You miss that part, but yeah, the day that was my last game, which was never planned to be my last game, I was here, it was first Saturday in January, and I went from here to Seton Hill outside Pittsburgh. That's not close to here. It seems like it should be a lot closer, and it's not. And it was like a 5-hour drive, and reffed with 2 ladies that I'd never met before. We did the game, and I got back in the car to drive back 5 hours, and I'm going, okay, couldn't go to softball practice, missed both boys' basketball practice. My father-in-law is going to have to help with something because boys are going to have games, and Abigail's going to have practice, and this isn't going to work. And so it was a temporary retirement, I thought, maybe for the beginning of the season, and then summer hit. It was camp season. It was like, got to go back to camp. And I was like, no, boss, can't come back. Sorry. And so, yeah, but now watching it from the outside now, yeah, trying to recruit officials is really hard. And I think we've all seen that. We got some new ones in. We've tried to work some high schoolers into our group. We use an association to do our basketball and our soccer. My son decided this year at Shenandoah, he started doing intramurals, no prodding from me or his grandfather. My father also is a high school official. And so I guess he's got the bug too. Yeah, it's a lot. And that's where people say, do you want to go back and do high school? And I'm like, no, because everybody thinks they know the game. And I don't feel like being yelled at by people who don't actually know the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that it gives you more grace with officials? I'm sure it does, but do you also I'm a soccer fan, and it's always interesting after the game on the weekends, usually Monday or Tuesday, they will start to review reffing calls that happen during the soccer match. And sometimes these former refs are pretty brutal because they actually know, we think we understand the interpretation of what should have happened, or was it a handball, or what wasn't it, but they actually know. And I think they're just trying to be honest, and they're not trying to play favorites or anything, but it makes them have to be pretty brutal. And I'm sure when you're in your son's games, you're not the jerk screaming at people, but in your head, you say, you made a bad call there. That was a pretty bad call.
Yeah. The way I was taught when we were reviewing tape for that was we would really look at positioning. So I'm looking going, why did they miss the call? because I don't think their judgment is bad necessarily. I think it's you're standing in the wrong spot. If you're standing behind the player and you can't actually see the contact, we call that stacked, where you can't see the person. And I know why you missed it. Now, if you take it 2 steps this way, you'd have seen the space and seen that the kid didn't touch him. The Western Conference Finals the other day, where Shea Alexander went up for a shot, and the guy didn't hit him, but where the official was standing, it looked like he got hit because he did what SGA does and fell to the ground and got a foul call. And I'm like, from the other angle, I'm looking, going, yeah, he's going to get, because it was all an angle thing. And so
you can't cut it off, I bet, can you? Like once it's on, you're seeing it. Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. You see it and it's all, but and I try to go down and talk to us because it's one of those awkward situations where they don't work for me.
Right.
But they work for me, because they're a subcontractor of a contracted agency to go in and try to talk about positioning or why it happens. They teach now in basketball, if I go up to shoot and you have a block shot and it goes straight down, 99 out of 100 times that shot was blocked clean, because if you hit the arm, the ball's going to go left or right. So if they block it straight down, you should have nothing. Yeah. And it's just I don't have to have a good angle to watch that and know you missed that one. But yeah, it is difficult. And every once in a while, especially high school games, when I feel like they should know more, or middle school games, then I'm every once in a while I would yell from the stands. But typically what I'm doing is explaining to parents around me why the call happened and either why they missed it or why they're right and our position actually is no good.
And they're looking to you, right? Like they're, what did he say? Did Chris think it was a bad call? Then it's a bad call. Yeah.
Yeah. The guys with Isaac, who's now in college, would. The ones with Andrew don't necessarily know I officiated. So I kind of can hide with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not always the best to openly offer that information, that's for sure. And, I will just touch on one piece of that before we move forward. And Shane, you had mentioned grace for the officials. Yeah. So the experience of being a longtime official and having grace for officials when you watch it, whether at professional level or your kids or at a rec ball. I had the opportunity to officiate baseball travel circuit around the area for a long time. And Chris, like you, I got into this position and I said maybe 2 years into it, I'm done. So the grace with the officials is one piece, but I did that since I was probably 15 or so years old. So similar to yourself, that job officiating, and you mentioned you didn't need to be yelled at anymore. Well, we get yelled at in our job now. Yeah. We do. That's the reality. The public, we're playing with their tax dollars or whatever it may be. I believe in addition to grace for officials, it has given me a whole lot of grace and patience with the public. That maybe an individual who hasn't been in officiating, where they were getting constantly questioned, constantly, yelled at by a I don't want to say it, but I'll say it, crazy parent. They may not have that experience if you never had a job like that. And so for me, honestly, I carry a lot of that with me to this day. I have a lot of patience for people. They're human. They question so much. Obviously, in this day and age, the youth sports circuit has gotten, it's social media, all of it has compounded to make it so in your face. When there is a situation that goes wrong, you see it. Everybody sees it. It doesn't mean it wasn't happening 15, 20 years ago. But now it's out there. And again, I don't know if you agree with that. But it's prepared me a lot for the way that we work with the public.
Yeah, it does. It does help, the verbal judo, the being able to try to see their perspective or, why it happened and explaining the process and why, how we decided with that. Had that with a playground, doing a $125,000 playground replacement. And I've got some ADA folks going, we need to do pour in place. We need to have, we need that rubber flooring. And I went, okay, I'm writing back on Facebook going, I usually don't want to comment back in these threads, but I need to say, we can do that, but I'm going to put $80,000 of our $125,000 into the ground. And they're like, what? It's that expensive? I'm like, yeah. So we might have some swings and one slide. And they're like, oh, okay, we now understand. I said, a couple years from now, hopefully we'll have more money and we'll build a $300,000 playground where part of it will be fully accessible with a roll-up ramp and not a transfer point. But, we're today, not with this money.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know how many y'all have HOAs in y'all states or how big and strong they are. I mean, ours do a lot of city type functions from time to time for their neighborhoods. And when I'm talking with HOA reps and they're kind of venting to me about something the residents are saying to them, and there are residents, but they're also there. They're in their suburban HOA neighborhood as well. I think working as a government employee has made me have some empathy for them. And I'm just like, yeah, governance is not easy, right? Like you think governance is easy. You see from the outside that someone should be able to just do this, someone should be able to do that. And they serve on an HOA board or they serve on a water board or they even serve on a school board in some capacity. And then you find out governance isn't easy and it's not what you think it is from the outside. And I'm sure back to the earlier point, officiating is probably the same way,
So think about the officiating call that was made against Tottenham. That impacted a fan base of how many individuals?
Oh yeah.
Tons of
Millions.
individuals. Yes. That's just what we're doing. We're doing every day. We're making a call and it impacts our communities or whoever it might impact, obviously. So it's pretty much, it's very similar. It's very parallel. So, hey, before we head to rapid fire, Chris, I want to ask you one more question that I think would be pretty valuable to our listeners. I mentioned it earlier. You're very active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, in my eyes, has grown so much in terms of its uses and the practicality of why we use it. So what I noticed with you is you're very positive and supportive of not only sharing your story and King George's story, but also the profession and governance as a whole. I think recently you shared you're always listening to podcasts. You just shared about a general governance podcast. So I just want to ask you if you could talk through that to the individual out there who maybe is interested in diving a little bit into LinkedIn. Where did you get the inspiration to utilize that? How have you benefited from it? And, what do you feel that you're able to give back to the profession through using it?
Yeah. So a lot of that came, wife and I separated in early 2023, and I still am living with my parents right now. So they're in Fairfax. It's just over an hour to get to work. So I've got this commute, not like the young lady who was in Arizona who's got the 3 hours.
Gabby. Yeah, that's crazy.
She said that and I'm like dying in the car. But, you got to listen to something. And so even with basketball, when I was going all over the place, it was books, it was podcasts. And so I think I stumbled upon you guys because Noons was on. And if Noons is on, I'm going to listen, and I don't care if it's his, 100 cups of coffee presentation for the 100th time that I've seen it, because it's always, you never know where he's going to go. Tom O'Rourke, somebody like that. Like, so your first step's a guess. I'm like, well, all right, I'm not going to pick and choose. All right, I'm subscribing and I got them all. I didn't know who Jody Adams was. A whole lot of these people early on. Like, I didn't even really know what the Academy was, even though Ron Strickler, who I worked with, was an extern. I don't know any of this stuff. And so I'm like, okay, now I'm like getting into the field. And there's got to be more people like me who need to hear about these guys. And, because you would say at that time, maybe we got a dozen listeners. I'm like, well, I'm one of them. So let's go, And so I said, let me start selling that. And I then somehow stumbled into Joe Turner's podcast, City Manager Unfiltered. And somewhere in my head, I think like Jay and like Tom maybe is an assistant administrator, or probably not an administrator's position, at least at this point while I still got kids in school, but is that in my future? So I started listening to those too, because literally I'm in the car for at least 2.5 hours a day. And I listen to everything on 1.5 times speed. So, you guys talk really slow in real life.
Yeah.
But, so there's more stuff to listen to. So I'm listening to his stuff. Which then took me to the one that I shared recently, Sam Tolles, who's in California. And it was just, what he was talking about hit home. There was one that Joe Turner did. It was on emergency management. And I'm like, we know we mix in with that. My building is the secondary shelter. We go huge shelter at the high school, but we had a snowstorm which knocked power out to certain neighborhoods for like 4 days. We were the shelter. We had a dozen people in here for 3 or 4 days. And it was kind of crazy, but we're that backup shelter. So I'm like, this is important information that I think people should share. And, that was where I was like, how do I shape myself for my next job? And that's where I jumped into LinkedIn, but finding the things that I want to, to put out there to folks that I think they should see. If you got a friend, a friend of mine on, I know that Emmy's coming up. Like, that's awesome. It's the bonding through it. And then through that, I went through the divorce, went through a rough mental health time. And so kept it quiet. Like, the staff here figured out that I was separated, but I hadn't told them.
Yeah.
And when I finally told him, my admin at the time goes, I figured that out. I thought so, because you were buying lunch a whole lot more than bringing leftovers. And I'm like, yeah. But it was 2 years ago this month that I told everybody. We had the new county administrator, and I felt like, all right, I told all the department heads, I said, this is why I've been kind of wacky. And they, now I had support. And I said, if I can tell them, I got to tell my staff. And I was like, I can't hide this. And so I've shared it. Emmy's one of the people. Actually, we were at a conference a couple of years ago, and we'd had a discussion at dinner about it, about mental health. And the next night we had the award ceremony. I'd put us in for 3 awards. We didn't get any of them. I go to the social/dinner after the award ceremony. It's in a flipping concert hall, and the band starts, and you couldn't hear yourself think. And here I am, I hit a peak, and I was crashing fast. And I was like, and the food was not, it was all little finger food. I'm like, this isn't dinner. And I lost it. And I literally went back to the hotel, went upstairs, and left half a day early. Like, I missed the last 2 sessions the next day because I just was having a meltdown, and saw Emmy on the way out and told her what was going on. And she's like, okay, call me. And so literally I got halfway, got about an hour down the road and went to Chick-fil-A, which is my happy place. I talked to Tom from my second office today. I was able to relax and calm down, and then continued home because I actually had a meeting that was a virtual meeting, was going to conflict with the next day's sessions anyways. But to be able to tell that to people, business is hard.
Yeah.
And for me, when I was going through all of that, and the divorce was finally a year ago, work was the place I was in control. I did not take time off, because I could, at least if I came here, I was in charge.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like I was in charge anywhere else, even though I'm not that kind of leader. Like, when I brought the parks guys on, they were so afraid that I was going to be this micromanager and be telling them what they had to do every day. And the first thing I told them was, if it's broken, fix it. If it's more than $100, call me. I'm still going to say fix it. And they've never been empowered before. And just to be able to grow that relationship. And so now I'm slowly releasing stuff and slowly being able to take more time away. I jokingly say, like, you guys are my friends on Friday morning when I get in the car. And that's where we hit, I think last summer when you finished that season, and I wrote, I'm like, where are my friends that are talking to me on Friday mornings? Even though I've only actually had conversation with Shane because we talked about Placer for 30 minutes one time.
That's right.
Like, it just, you guys fill my Friday mornings. And I think you do that for a lot of folks. It just, it adds that camaraderie that for a long time in my career, I tried to separate. I tried to keep my career and my family so separate, and to not understand that, they do need to cross and overlap.
Well, I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing that with us. And I know there was a recent post on LinkedIn that I believe you shared about Mental Health Awareness Month. And these are the types of shares, I would say, that are important to people. And what it sounds like as well, I already know just from, I think a lot of our content, or a lot of our, I guess, we have very similar points of views or experiences. So it crosses my feed. Your comments cross my feed. And so I obviously know and can relate to all that. And I can see what you're doing. And we have what we talk about every once in a while as our YPN fam and all these individuals who we've met through the podcast. And it's a special piece we talked about earlier of what someone might be surprised about. That's a whole nother byproduct of how close this profession is, and how much of a sounding board, how much support we can each give each other. And through LinkedIn itself, just getting more active. It sounds like you may have known Emmy before that, but it sounds like this has also helped you build that network too. I mean, it's a whole different way of interacting with people in this profession, obviously on a larger scale than just the locale or the state. And so I applaud you for that, because it's out there and it's benefiting people. And obviously it sounds like it's a therapeutic piece for you as well, which I feel can be helpful for those of us out there who are working through things or burnout or whatever that may be.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, anybody's listening and you got a question or want to talk about something, call me, email me. Like that's what we've got to do. And like, I've learned that a whole lot in the last 4 or 5 years of really where we're going and what we need to do and how we need to take care of each other. Shane actually had the conversation when I called him up, Glacier and Easy. And we're talking about national conference. And I'm like, yeah, I went to one, man. It was not me. I went to Baltimore in 2019 and you see, you're going to all the different sessions, and I literally walked in an Eli session, and it was every seat was gone. People were against the wall, and you're sitting like this. It's like the biggest room in the place, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this is not me. And the room got to be about 80 degrees, and I'm like, well, but now too, when you're in a smaller agency trying to find the funding, so I try to stay state because it's closer and cheaper. And trying to spread that funding out so I can get more of my people to trainings. But at some point it'll come back towards me. Philly's close. Maybe I can pull that one off this year.
Yeah.
I think we're fortunate to be in the industry, and I've said that. I think we're all fortunate to have found ourselves in this industry. I also think we're fortunate to have found ourselves in the industry in the time we have. Like me doing this job, and I am not super social person. I've been on this show before saying that, I actually have some social anxiety, but this would be a much tougher gig 20 years ago. Like me being expected to do the same thing I am expected to do now without the resources, without the people I could talk to, without the ability to connect on whether it's social media or texting or emailing or whatever it was in a different time. I think the whole experience would have been much different. And what's I think is interesting is when I talk to public works people or when I talk to library staff, they sometimes do know really well the people in the Austin area, but they don't know even the state level. Like we know our national audience. Like you'll talk to someone in public works and they'll know the guy in the next town or the next town over, but they barely even know someone in a different region of the state of Texas, nor less, someone in a different country or a different part of the country. And it's just really interesting. I remember someone that had worked with Barbie in Doral was interviewing for a public works job in Pflugerville. And I had gone and talked to her. It was one of these car wash things where they run you through people all day. And so after the thing, I was like, hey, so do you know Barbie? And she was shocked that someone knew Barbie. And it's because in a public works world, that's just not how they do it. They don't necessarily go to the APA conference. They maybe go to the Texas APA or their version of the APA conference, but like we lean on each other a lot more. And what that started out is how do you do COVID? And what it's ended up being is how do you get relief from this? How do you manage your relationships from this? Hey, I'm going through this real struggle. And that's the really cool thing about our industry is it started out just us trying to get a little bit better at what we did professionally. And now we have found it a way to get a lot better at what we do personally. And so I wish more agencies or more industries had this opportunity because I feel very fortunate to have access to the people we do.
Yeah, I agree.
That makes total sense. Like I was going through and prep for this, my supervisor management school binders the other day. Unless they were Maryland people, I didn't know anybody's name anymore. And I'm like, these aren't going to help me 20 years later, and they're now gone. I was the one who drove far to every one of those meetings because all but one were on the Western Shore in the main part of the state. And so I immediately became this like spectacle, which, because like, how far did you drive today? 2.5 hours, 3 hours to get to this one. And so that was like the awakening of like, oh, I really need to engage with more people in the profession than the ones I just work with, which was hard in Ocean City because at the time, the conference in Maryland was in Ocean City and had been for like 60 years at that point. I know in the last couple of years, they've now moved it to Cambridge, where I think you guys spoke. I would write out, literally for 17 years, I wrote that on my eval every year, move the conference somewhere else because we literally would go to a session and then go back to evaluate the fields, whether we could play baseball that night, then go back to a session and then go back and run a program. And I never felt like I could interact with anybody and because I was just at work and instead of sitting at my computer reading email for an hour, I was at a session. But that leadership program really got me engaged with a group of folks that in Maryland, all of them, almost every one of them now is shining, doing stuff with the state, but I check in once in a while with them. And, I was the first one to make a big job leap out of the group. So it was a fun, good program that folks, if you've got a leadership program in your state, you definitely need to take advantage of it.
Yeah, you just hit on, I think we can go about maybe 5-6 hours with this one, because you just hit on two for Jay, leadership program and SMS.
Did you see his face light up?
I did when you said SMS. So I would like to keep going, but let's move to rapid fire. Let's all go through a couple rounds with Chris.
We'll connect
here.
offline, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So my first rapid fire, having officiated, and we all know the youth sports, the environment that we're in right now. Can you tell us a story about a crazy? Crazy's probably not a good thing to say. I apologize. A parentzilla, a situation, anything. You've got to have a million.
Yeah, I mean, I really worked hard to not engage parents, which is a challenge.
Doesn't mean they won't engage you, though.
Yeah, and so actually, the first year I was in Ocean City, I go down. We're in high school. I go down to the little town of Crisfield, which is on the Chesapeake Bay. It is tiny. It's a 1A high school. It's tiny. We're dressing in the PE teacher's office in the locker room where the team is, like, crazy. Well, it's a chaotic game. We go to leave, and I'm walking out to my car, going down the hallway, and this guy says to me, "Hey, can I get a ride back to Ocean City with you?" And I'm like, "Who in the hell are you?" Like, what? No. And I keep walking, and I'm like, "Who does he even know where I'm from?" Like, this is like my third game in the association. But, just the shock of that and how small town, even on, that Eastern Shore, like literally the association covers from part of the Eastern Shore of Virginia all the way to the Bay Bridge. It was just, that was crazy. Like, just totally shocked me. Like, I got to get out of here. How fast can I get up the 1-lane road to civilization again?
That's a different one. That's not usually why they follow you to the parking lot.
That's funny. Yeah. Continue with the officiating. What would you say? Because you mentioned quite a number of sports that you did. Which was the most difficult to officiate?
So it's not necessarily a sport, because I was pretty good. I feel like I was pretty good at basketball. Was very successful. But when I was in high school, I in our rec league, I worked our high school division. So reffing your peers was extremely difficult. And we would play we had weeknight games at the police lodge, had a gym. And like, I remember there's one day I'm at my locker, and here's the guy across from me, whose girlfriend's locker was actually across from mine. He fouled out of the game the night before. And he's like, no. I'm like, look, man, you fouled him. And I got to go to class. Like, but just here I am, like, I'm literally in class with some of these guys. And that was really difficult, similar to intramurals in college, but not because, at JMU, there's 15,000 people at the time. So you're not necessarily seeing the people all day, but like, I would ref these guys and see them in class or in the hallway the next day.
That's cool. But I'm sure challenging.
Oh, no, that sounds terrible, actually. I mean, I guess intramural kids do it all the time, but it's the stakes seem a little lower at that point. It sounds like you've worked around the Chesapeake Bay, or what NRPA would have called the Mid-Atlantic region, I guess, for most of your career. And you talked about at times seeing jobs. If there was an area outside the Mid-Atlantic that popped up that interests you, what either agency or region of the United States you're like, man, that would be interesting, that would be appealing?
That's hard. Like, really, I've never delved into that far. I got the job in Ocean City. I thought I'd be there 2 to 5 years. We were getting married. We got married a year into my job there, and we were going to be home to Virginia. Like, I'm from Fairfax. My wife is, my now ex-wife was from the Fredericksburg region. Like, we're just going to get home. Like, I've interviewed with every freaking department, I think, between Richmond and DC. So to move out of state really wasn't ever an option, because we wanted to be closer to family. Now that I've listened to folks, Park District world and Chicagoland sounds interesting to be in a different world. I don't know how much I would like the city aspect, so it would have to pick the right Park District.
Ohio's Metro Parks is a park district, right? And you did your grad school in Ohio.
There's some in
Yeah,
Ohio.
and in Athens. So I was at Ohio University, so I was way in the corner.
Yeah.
But interacting with something like that. Like the park district part is interesting, or the big kid job maybe if I ever worked for the authority in Fairfax County, just because it's different versus a standard county.
All right. My second rapid is we're gonna have a little fun with food. I'm going to Disney. That's a shocker to everybody. At the end of July, and at 60 days, you get to book your reservations for dining, and that's a big part of the trip. Disney has a lot of sub pockets for people. One of those huge sub pockets for me is dining. So I just got to do that this morning. Mad dash. You got to get what you want. So I'm all about food right now. All I can think about is that vacation. You mentioned consistency, Chick-fil-A. So I get that. I want to know, what's your Chick-fil-A go-to meal? And then if it's not Chick-fil-A and you're in Virginia it doesn't have to be King George, but what's your go-to outside of Chick-fil-A?
Yeah. So Chick-fil-A, actually, what I figured out last year, a year and a half or so, I feel like I can eat the same number of calories whether I eat the 8-count nugget meal or if I get the 5-count nugget kids meal with the ice cream. So I lean towards that more because I figure, well, I'll give up 3 nuggets and some fries for ice cream. That just seems better. So they the one here in King George they know it's me as soon as they bring it out, and it's a kid's meal with a large Dr. Pepper. And they laugh and they come around the corner because they know they're looking for me. Otherwise, I'm just a chain guy. Like I love, Five Guys started in Arlington, and so they've expanded, and I'm sure it is one of the worst burgers I can eat for myself, but to sit down and have that
Tastes
burger,
good.
those boardwalk style fries, are just, that's a great stop too.
Yeah, I feel like Jay can get on board with the ice cream at lunchtime.
I had to go get something sweet yesterday, so I went out to lunch with a buddy of mine, and I have a major sweet tooth. After every meal, I have to have something. And the place we ate at didn't have anything, so I literally drove to a candy store to get something.
Oh, we've been on sweet tooth hunts with Jay. It hits, and it's like those damn Snickers commercials. We're like, all right, let's go get him something.
Sometimes he doesn't get anything, and I'm disappointed.
But he goes.
Yes, he window shops, and then he doesn't get something, and I just don't get it.
There's a window though. If I don't eat something within 30 minutes,
it's just gone.
The drive is gone. So I don't see what I'm craving. I don't do it just to do it. I got to fill the craving. I'm going to go down this path of ice cream. Obviously, Chick-fil-A's ice cream is just standalone flavor. Are you an ice cream fan, outside of Chick-fil-A?
I am very cut and dry. It's cookies and cream, and that's about it.
Now, I was going to ask you for your flavor, and I like cookies and cream. I can get behind that. That's cool.
Okay, so I'm going to show how little I know about some officiating, because I think some games are officiated with less than 4 people. But let's say you have to assign all of us a task under your officiating team. Where are you giving it? What sport, and where are you placing us? Or maybe scorekeep. Maybe one of us is like a timekeeper or scorekeeper.
I would definitely, I know Tom is a baseball guy, so I'd be good. I'd put him behind the plate and let me work the bases, because I loved working the bases. I played games
in those 90-degree days. There's nothing better than being on the bases.
Well, that, and you do a high school game, and when are you going to be home? I don't know. Why don't you know? Because they got to play 7 innings and they got lights. Whereas basketball, I can tell you it's going to be about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Even if we have overtime. Jay is very methodical. I think the hardest the position that in basketball is shot clock operator. If you have a bad shot clock operator, your game is going in the trash. And so I would put Jay on a shot clock. I think he would be right on that, keeping track of it, making sure it's reset properly. In the last couple of years since I got out, now that they do resets to 20 instead of to 30, that's even more confusing. We got a foul in the front court or whatever. Shane,
it's tough. I get it.
I'd take you out on the flag football field with me.
Let's go. Let's go.
I bet, did you do any flag football when you were doing some nurses stuff?
I did. Ref a little bit of flag football. I was terrible at it, but
I'll put you on my line judge position so we don't have to move too fast, too far.
perfect. Least amount of movement I'll take.
That's awesome.
I always wanted to work back judge, but when I went to nationals, they would always turn around and throw me back in the referee position multiple games in a row as we got later in the tournament.
I'll take line judge all day.
It sounds like you nailed it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if there's a place that Shane could be where he doesn't have to interact with the actual players and the coaches.
That's the only challenge though. Is he's gonna have one team right behind him.
I've cleared the field a couple times. Been like, you don't like this? It's over. So yeah.
All right, fun stuff, guys. Fun stuff. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit about your story. I know there's a lot more behind it as well, but I really enjoyed the conversation and we just appreciate the time.
I loved it. This was great. Hanging out with the guys I listen to every Friday. So really enjoyed it.
You're going to get to hear yourself
Thanks for joining
on
us.
the radio at some point. That'll feel weird. Yep.
That's going to be weird, but I'm going to have to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on.
Or you can just be like Shane and don't listen to it. He doesn't.
Ever.
Yeah, it's
Well,
fine.
I kept thinking Shane might text me and say like, "Could you be on?" And then I was going to ruin Tom's surprise. That Tom's guess like they did back. Where was it, season 1 to you? Season 1 or season 2 when Jay lost one?
It's happened a few times.
To you, yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks guys.
All right, Chris, take care. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
It's a fun conversation, guys.
It is.
It's a lot of fun.
It's weird to have them with a fan. Like we've done that a couple times with Tristan and others as well, and it's fun to have. It's fun to have some people on that don't understand anything that we're doing, and some people know exactly what we're doing, where we're going next, or whatever. So,
no, that was great. I mean, some of his things that I see on LinkedIn are definitely super inspiring. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because there's a handful of folks that are just super active and make me want to look at their things and make me like want to continue to dive into what they're talking about. And he's one of them. And I always appreciate that. And, he's opened my eyes to some other podcasts that he shared about. And, he mentioned the town manager one, or city administration one. I've listened to that a few times and, enjoy seeing other perspectives that he talks about throughout LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would recommend anybody out there on LinkedIn, look up Chris and give him a follow because just like Jay said, everything he posts is very, it's positive. It's supportive of this industry. It's supporting of other agencies. It's not even, which I really love. You can obviously promote what you do in Pflugerville or, in Concord or wherever. But when there's a job posting, I want to say it was one of Michael Kirschman's jobs. Chris is the first one to say this is a great opportunity for anybody who's interested. And so
I like that it feels genuine. Like his posts don't feel fake. It's like, he really does believe you should be listening to this episode, or that he took something away from this presenter, or that there's this really cool opportunity. He's not faking that.
No,
absolutely not. No, I really enjoyed that conversation, guys. We are potentially scheduled to come next week. You don't need to hear about our business, but who knows? It's just been a bumpy ride. So
that's right.
I guess we'll see you all next time on RecLess, whenever that is.
Here at RecLess, we love to give back to the community that we're so passionate about. We do that by providing scholarships to professionals to attend conferences they may not otherwise be able to attend. That's where you come in. Sponsorships. If you are interested in a sponsorship, we'd love to connect with you. So this spot could be yours. Contact us today at recklesspod@gmail.com or check us out at recklesspod.com for more details.
This episode of RecLess wouldn't have been possible without the support of our agencies and our better halves, Melissa Salatino, Lindsay Tryon, and our executive producer, Hannah Mize. We also want to thank our director of hashtags and swag, Rooney Taylor, and our team of junior producers, Luke, James, Elizabeth, Grant, and Harper. Stay up to date on all things RecLess by following all of our social media and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to ensure you don't miss an episode. See you next time on RecLess.